All right, welcome back to another episode, hashtag randomly with Ronnie Jr., where we will break down Real Housewives of Miami, season 5, episode 3 and 4. We broke down episode 1 and 2, and this season, this franchise, everything is actually really good. It's streaming on the Peacock streaming platform. I'm randomly Ronnie Jr. Right over there, we've got Russell Raymond. How you doing, man?
Hey, buddy. I'm good. I'm so excited about Real Housewives of Miami. I swear, I just can't get enough of these Latina women.
Mm-hmm. It does such a good job at being a fun franchise, but then the stories that each of them are telling, maybe not even when they're in a group together, but the ones that they're telling, within their personal lives, within their husbands or their children or their career occupations, et cetera, their age, even. That's what, in my opinion, gives more stakes to the actual excitement when they all get together, and it gives us more of an insight that they're real people. I say that on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, like, it's just such an act now, so to speak. And maybe if Miami went on forever, it would maybe feel that way, but it doesn't feel that way. It feels very like it's a reality show, sure, but I'm very interested in all of their personal stuff as much as I'm interested in their fabulous, condos and homes and, being on Star Island. And it is to be said that the 4 episodes was crazy because of how strong and intense it ended. And we will get to that. My question to you is, I typically don't need an episode or a show to give me 4 episodes. I'm not really a binger. I'm more of a week to week kind of guy. I like watching TV week to week. Do you like binging? Do you like week to week? And what was your thought on them giving us 4 amazing episodes and ending the way it did?
I'm surprised that they gave us 4. I really like a 2 episode drop. Like a 2, like boom, 2, boom, 2, because there's so much content being pumped out right now, and I want to catch up and know all of it, and I want to be in on all of it because there's so many great projects that are being produced or were produced back during the pandemic that are still rolling out if they're scripted. So I do kind of like a binge, but I also like a bit of a wait. So like when it comes to White Lotus or what are some other shows that we're watching?
Well, I know on HBO, Gossip Girl, they did 2 on their release, and then it's week by week. I think 2 on the release is good. But with this particular franchise, maybe they just had Housewives of Miami. Maybe they just had something so big and so good that they felt like they needed to feed it to the audiences. But I think that
they did.
You need to have faith in your product because we're going to watch. Like, that was my only critique. I don't know if it was 1 into 2 or episode 2 into 3, but it was like 2 weeks ahead, 5 weeks ahead. And then we went to the next episode, and all of a sudden it was on this episode, and then it was a flashback and a flash forward. I was like, you need to take it slow because I don't need all of that. You know what I mean?
But
I don't need
you
all.
have to remember though, the game is changing, right? So when you and I were growing up, and let's talk about music. So when you and I were growing up, it was important to put out a quality record because that's how you were getting your numbers if your record was noticed. Today, it's all about who can get the top charting single. And you don't even need a full album. You just need an EP or a single that's out that's going to hit the charts, that's going to be able to compete with somebody else. And so, unfortunately, the same thing is happening with television and with all of the streaming services that are coming out. They have to be able to pump out those numbers in order for the executives to reapprove the show for the following seasons, as we've seen a lot of cancellations. And so I fear that going back to the old way of how you and I are used to, you got in front of that TV every Thursday, every Monday to see that new episode. And unfortunately, that's just not what the times are calling for, let alone we can't captivate people's attention due to social media for that long. So that's why we're constantly posting new selfies and why we're constantly making TikTok videos, because the content needs to continuously get pumped out to keep the attention on what the focus is. Just like if you're not posting enough, the algorithm isn't going to pick you up and give you the views that you should actually have or deserve. And I've experienced that personally. I was going viral through the pandemic. Even after the pandemic, I was going viral. And then I stopped posting because I took a break. And now I'm trying to get my numbers up. And now that I'm like so consistent about it, my numbers are finally starting to flow back into place.
I don't know how many times I get complimented, like, "Oh man, your channel or your network or whatever it is that you consume of mine, YouTube, podcast, even the little stuff that I do with radio." I get a lot of compliments, and then they look at the numbers and they're like, "What's going on?" It's like because I hate that social media game. So I'm
Yeah.
saying it as you have to know it and navigate it. But I just wanted to introduce the topic. Like, do you like it? And I guess you're right. You have to know what it is with
You have to
scripted
change with the
series
times.
with
Yeah.
scripted series. I think you have a little bit more freedom
Hmm.
to like say my show is so good, or HBO, let's say this program is so good, The White Lotus, we could give you episode by episode by the week.
Yes.
But with the shows that are relied a little bit on, what's going on with Larsa Pippen on TMZ, or what's going on with Adriana's
Yep.
social media, you almost have to kind of give it and give a lot. With all that being said, even though I was a little bit of a hater off the beginning with that, I do love the way it ended. I was a little bit like, whoa, I don't need 4 episodes, but
Hmm.
the way it ended, oh my goodness, like heart palpitations because it was like a cinematic masterpiece. Give the show an Emmy already.
Well, before we get there, let's start with the third episode,
Okay.
and let's just dive right into let's dive into Alexia. Let's
Okay.
talk about her and
The heart
her.
of the show. She's the heart of the show. She is.
She
I think
really,
we sort of talked about that last episode. She's a bit of the heart of the show.
and I very much like her for that, and I also love that she gives the motherly advice from almost a level-headed perspective, because I feel like she's almost unbiased. So when she gives an opinion, it actually has depth or merit to it. So, but I do want to talk about uh which kind of bothers me, that she's accepting of her son's girlfriend being on the show. As anybody who watches the show knows, her son was arrested for an alleged domestic dispute, and it's been explained that what happened is that the son was trying to convince his girlfriend to not drive after she had been drinking and been intoxicated, and therefore, you and I have dealt with drunk people, and again, this isn't our situation um to call a spade, or what's
Yeah.
not. But we've been in
We're
a
we're just
situation.
listening. We're listening to how she's handling
Yeah.
it.
So we've been in a situation where it's uncomfortable to try to take someone's keys, and sometimes they can get a little aggressive. And then if you put that in the position of a male and a female, and it's just not playing out how you would hope it would be, and if someone takes it a little too far by calling the police because of the intoxication level is at that level, which I've also had that done to me,
Hmm.
um, it's just not a good place to be in. And unless you can quickly diffuse the situation, which in my case, I was luckily able to do that, so it didn't get to a point where there was a lie said about me and I in this situation. But I don't necessarily agree with her allowing this person to have any sort of storyline in the show, mentioning her name, giving her any sort of credit. Um, because unfortunately, we see this more often than less. There's a toxic cycle that's going on here that we shouldn't be highlighting on a national and international television show, as Peacock grows internationally. Um, but I do appreciate that she is addressing it with her son. I don't necessarily think that this girl should have been on camera, especially when it came to the wedding, nor should be given much airtime in regards to her son being arrested, um, because I mean this is about their life, and of course we have to talk about it. But I feel for her as a mom having to deal with this and dealing with the public eye. I just don't think it should be highlighted. It can be addressed, but I don't think we should drag it on. What are your thoughts on that, or on the
Um.
situation?
Well, I think Alexia is, to a fault, in terms of her older son.
Hmm.
She's always, it's like a hard thing because you're being filmed on a show. It is
Hmm.
reality, but you're being filmed on a show, so you're protective of that. But then when your son continues to make errors, and I don't mean in this regard, because maybe the story she's indicating now is 100%. Maybe it was him in the best light. Although when you got arguing involved, and you got the girlfriend wanting to storm off, that's involved, and
Yeah.
drinking and driving, there's a lot. But then when you also add up how the son has been throughout, I don't want to say throughout the show because this is not his show.
Yeah.
His mom is on the show. So if he looked bad and there was the years where he had the issue with I don't know what I don't want to get into the terms and what he had done, but something with like a homeless person where he sort of assaulted somebody again, not saying allegedly like in that regard, but just I don't want to get into it. My point is he's had a lot of stuff go on. Like he's had a lot. So what do you do when you're mama bear and you're a what do they always say? Like a girl dad acts a certain way, but so does a boy mom, like she's so protective. So I think the hard thing about it is, yes, bringing people into the situation is difficult because now that they've already had a situation that happened off camera. You're bringing her on camera. Now you're giving her a namesake. And I'm not saying you're supposed to be believed or not believed based on you being on television or not. But now this girl could utilize the platform and she could go make an accusation that isn't true.
Yeah.
I want to
and by no means, I just want to clarify, by no means are we victim blaming or are we saying what is true, what is false. The only point that I wanted to get to was that the fact that it has airtime this much.
And yes, I love that you said that because I'm not getting into even like I said with the homeless situation, unhoused. I'm not getting into that. I'm just saying he has had some struggles, and so bringing anybody in, creates a little bit of a liability. So that does worry me for the sake of Alexia. Now for him, I mean, I don't know. Like, I feel like if you really do have this much of an issue, you could neglect or not neglect. You can decide, I'm not going to film. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If he's feeling this much of a distance from his mother, like why? And this could be maybe when she did her preliminary interviews for the season 5 and what's going on in your life, Alexia. And she explained that they wanted to follow that story. That's how the production works,
Yeah.
But maybe she could have kept that a little tighter to the vest because this can open up a lot of issues, can of worms, and she already dealt with it last season, as we saw in the flashback. With like, did he have a domestic abuse? And what did she say? She didn't say allegedly. She said
it's been alleged.
Yeah, something of that nature. So she got through it the first time. I don't know. He's a challenging guy because
he is. And I also will say, and no disrespect to her as a mother, because you can raise your child as best as you possibly can, and they're still going to represent themselves the way that they want to when they get to a certain age. So this is no in disregard or disrespect to her, but he doesn't even walk in the room and really exude excitement or he doesn't really engage all that much. And he didn't do it with Todd at the wedding. And I know they have their past, but even still there wasn't anything uplifting or exciting or intriguing about it. It wasn't like, hey, mom, there was no charisma behind it, is what I'm trying to get to. There's no charisma behind him. There's not even charisma behind him in the way he presents himself when they went to lunch to go talk about this situation.
He does always look like and I don't want to judge him per se because it's like, this is not his show. He don't want to be on the show. This is not his dream. This is his mother's dream. However, he does appear on camera all the time, season after season after season after season, where like, you're like, buck up, man. Like, walk with your shoulders a little bit more confidently. He's a very, like, he kind of like slithers into a scene.
Exactly.
But also this is, imagine like you or myself, this is the career we chose. Well, the people that are around us, our family members or whatever the case, they don't really have to want to participate if they don't. I just think that
I can relate to that because my father is very much that way, and he doesn't love the glitz and the glam. He doesn't like to get dressed up. He likes some like whitewashed jeans and New Balance tennis shoes with orthotics inside of them. But with that being said, I accept him for who he is, but I would also not set him up for failure in the fact that if I had him on the podcast with us, I would personally dress him and have his hair done and faded. Not to say that I'm embarrassed of him, but just because I know how the internet and society can be, and I wouldn't set him up for failure in that aspect, because had he put his best foot forward when he went to go have lunch with his mom, going back to Alexia's son, you and I wouldn't be speaking about it right now in regards to how he presents himself. So yes, sometimes we have people in our lives that we wish presented themselves better, but again, there's a standard when it's on your terms or your terms or turf, and there's also a standard when it's on their terms or turf. So if I go to my dad's house, I know anything flies, anything can come out of his mouth. We can actually get more into daddy issues later. like
Oh no.
how we can get into daddy issues later, but because I think all men at one point have issues with their father,
Mhm.
because it's just a difference of opinions and it's testosterone and it's male ego and it's learning how to swallow it, and the fact that um, we're Hispanic, it's also machismo, so there's also a lot of that going on.
Yeah.
But with
He
that being said,
real quick
sorry,
before you move on, he's complicated enough because Alexia is complicated, and he's
yeah,
complicated also because you see him and you're like, you have access to so many great things, and
hmm
it's almost like you're at one hand you're saying, I hope to heck that that didn't happen, the accusation last season.
yeah,
However, let's just say like you see somebody with potential and he's not like utilizing that potential. I
yeah,
mean, if I look as cute as he looks, because he's a good looking guy, like
yes.
I'd be shutting shit down every day.
I mean, look,
That's what I'm
here's
trying.
what,
That's what I'm getting at. It's like if I had, I mean, he has rugged good looks. He just does, and he's got a
yeah,
mother who's wealthy, and he's in Miami living this great life, and he
yes.
just never walks with the confidence that's necessary.
Yes,
We want
especially
more for
being
him.
that you're an indirect public figure. He is an indirect public figure.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, come on, like truth be told, like you and I, we put ourselves together as well. Like, I don't look like this all the time, you
Mhm.
know. We are celebrities, they're just like us.
Yeah.
And when I go to the gym in the morning, I would hope to God that a paparazzi doesn't catch me,
Yeah.
especially knowing that I have my own show on Peacock. So the last thing that I want them to do is catch me walking into the gym
Yeah.
looking some type of way. However, I also put just a tad bit of effort when I walk out the door, just in case that instance does occur where something was to pop up, something from my past, or even maybe something from my show, or like something happening at the show or behind the scenes with any person that has been on the show. I have to always keep in mind that I have to be prepared for that. So I have curly hair. Curly hair can be a bit wild in the morning. So I always have a hat. I always have on a fresh pair of gym shorts. My shoes, no one could care less about your shoes. Like, they're gym shoes, so they're not going to look the best. But I also have on a shirt that compliments me. So I also walk out of the door ready to face anything that comes my way. And I just really wish Alexia's son would do that and present himself, because it doesn't help your case when you don't present yourself as charismatic or even likable,
Mhm.
for someone to believe about your situation. Because if you give off that vibe of having a chip on your shoulder, or an arrogance because you can just care less about anybody else's opinion, it doesn't help your case when it comes to allegations in a domestic dispute um, situation. And
Yeah.
again, we're not victim blaming. We're not saying it's true or false. All we're saying is that, you know, I wish it would have. I honestly wish it would have less light, because it's not shining a bright light in either direction. It's not shining light on, like, hey, let's protect women, or hey, let's also talk about true or false when it comes to men and allegations with them. Because as we know with the Central Park 5, right? The
Yeah.
Central Park 5, they were they were tried and found guilty on something that they didn't even do. So there have been men who have been wrongly accused
Yeah.
of crimes, but just because they're men, they're already seen as guilty in the media or in the public eye. And so I think it's very important to also address the fact that not all men are saints, but not all men are the devil. And I also think it's true to say that not all women are saints and not all women are the devil. And it doesn't mean I'm anti-woman. What it just means is that you have to be able to differentiate what's true and false, and we need to have a level-headed perspective when it comes to things happening, or even putting our own emotions into it. Because, like I said, I found myself in a similar situation, not necessarily as bad, but just the way people can act and your reaction can have, and if there's alcohol involved, can also lead to something that wasn't. And like I said, I wish it didn't have much
Light.
light, unless it was going to be in a positive way, in one way or another. Like, if her son actually did it, then let's address it and let's support women who are victims of domestic violence. Or if her son did not do it, let's also speak about other men who have been wrongly accused. Also women, we can speak about, and non-binary people who have been accused of doing something that they actually haven't done. So I just think in general, there's no good coming from this situation. I think this is a international and across America show that people watch, yes, for entertainment, but also people try to implement those things in their own life. So let's use the platform for the greater good, whether it be progressing the community of victims being heard, or progressing the wrongly accused of not being tried by media and actually being tried by the facts.
Well, there is a lot to that. And I think that's maybe why the scenes are being, aired, because it is that complicated energy that Alexia has to, go through. She has to make sure her son is accountable, and that's first and foremost. But then she struggles with, like, her being too much of a mama bear. Does that push him away? And that's probably, I mean, gosh, I'm not a parent, but that's got to be one of the hardest things. And I think that's what's possibly trying to be showcased in the scene. Is what do you do when your child, grown up child, is making some really bad decisions. Currently right now she's concentrating mostly on the fact that the girlfriend is kind of, keeping him away from the mom, and Peter is explaining that, it's a lot of the girls that I brought around, they don't really like being around you. There's something about you. What does she do?
But again, it's also a Hispanic thing that you're just mixing. It's hard to mix in-laws in our culture, because again, you have your family traditions that are so important. Not to say that any other culture's family traditions are not important, but Latinos and Hispanics are just very strong and hard-headed when it comes to mixing things. So, and overly opinionated sometimes when they don't need to be. And I've found my mom in that situation where as well. And it's also important to have checks and balances where I've had to put my mom in her place of like, no, you need to not say this. This is not something for you to have an opinion on. If I'm talking about it, it's just for an ear to listen, but I don't need your opinion. I just need to hear myself speak out loud and someone to listen so I can gather my own point. Yeah. But I mean, also she needs some self-love in there. And I think her son also needs some self-love in there, because you need to love yourself first before you can love anybody else. But again, they're progressing the relationship, and the relationship is still existent, which is what bothers me, because when you press charges or when you make this happen, it's just a very awkward situation when the relationship continues forward. But
wait, you're frustrated about what? You're frustrated about Alexia in some regard? I say that again.
Sorry. Yes. Okay. I know the line's kind of blurred a little bit there, but
like I said, it's a tough, complicated situation. So
it's a very
take
tough,
time,
system, or situation. So Alexia needs to find her place into letting her son live his own life, but also teach him how to love himself. Love yourself, because toxic relationships, no matter what fashion they're in, are not good. And you can only look. I come from the old school where my mom will grab us by the shirt and she'd be like, "You need to go brush your hair right now before you step out the house, because you look embarrassing. You look like a fool." And unfortunately, we're in the times now where parents aren't doing that, because there's that fine line of letting your child self-express themselves. But let's support our kids in their own style, and our nieces and nephews in their own, because we're guncos. Support our nieces and nephews in their style by teaching them also how to put their best foot forward and also love themselves. And with her son, he really needs to get a grip on what he wants to do. And he also needs to stand in his own truth and stand his ground of, this is who I'm with. It's who I'm going to continue to be with. Either you need to let this situation go because we've already resolved it, or he needs to cut the relationship loose, because again,
that would be so hard for her though. That would be so challenging. Oh, the relationship with the girlfriend or with the mom?
With the girlfriend.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say that, because Alexia's not gonna go for that. She's so protective of him.
She is, and that's
almost to a fault. To a fault.
Yes.
Which may have been enabling him all these years. So what is your thoughts on when she says, "Oh, the mom always gets it worse," or whatever? I've heard sentiments like that, but usually it's the opposite. I've grown up in a situation where it was the father was the one who's the most disrespected. So it was so odd that Alexia was like, the mother is the one who will always be the most disrespected. And I'm like, wow, like, I've heard it completely the other way. And a lot of times,
because I heard it that way of Alexia versus the way you heard it.
Oh, really? Well, I would say, I'm going to say one last thing, and then the floor is yours. One thing about keeping that in your mind, or whenever again, I'm not a parent, so let me let them have their opinions.
Mhm.
But when you make that proclamation, sometimes you are giving space, you're summoning the energy that
Yeah,
is that,
very true.
like you're kind of like calling it out, you're bringing it to the forefront.
Yeah.
So I just, because I had not seen it that way, and she said it exactly like I've heard it, but I've heard it the other way. Like the
Okay.
father is the one who this, and this by many
Yeah.
people within the world that I live. So you heard it the other way. That's so funny.
I did hear it the other way. My mom, a few years ago, and to be fair, I think my mom sees that I treat her equally just as much. If I'm going to correct my mom on something, I'm also going to correct my dad on it.
Mm.
So I think she was leaning more towards one or two of my siblings and the way that they let my dad get away with things versus the way they let my mom get away with things. But I also think we tend to hold the people we are closer with more accountable. So it might seem more like an attack or more like a correction, and dismissing other things from the other parent because we either aren't as close with them, or there just might not be a relationship there to actually engage and have that much energy or care that much. But I have heard my mom has said that like you will let you guys have let your dad get away with murder, and I'm like, no, I haven't. Like I've really kind of held his foot to the fire, and I've been equal across the board. But again, I'm my own person, and I can stand in my truth, and I can also call it out because I have the personality to do so. So if that's again, Alexia's son needs to really develop himself as an individual because he's lacking in some areas that we aren't, that we as the audience, and I speak for everybody in America, that we aren't agreeing with because we want to see the better side of him. We want to see more. We want to see more of him in a good light, that actually has weight to it. Like,
That's what
don't.
I think. That's what I think I was saying earlier. I was saying, while severity to the issue or accusations at hand or whatever the case, and there wasn't really an accusation in this season, but this is going back.
Yeah,
With all the, that's of course the most important thing. We do want to see better from him. Like we were cheering for him. We're like
we do.
hoping that he can grow up, and he's not a child anymore. He's not even a young in his early 20s. Like he's a grown up, and we
Yeah.
want to see more. I mean, it's just
Well,
ah.
we'll see how it unfolds for the season, but we'll just put a pin in that right now. But I do want to continue with self love. So let's talk about Julia
Oh,
revamping her modeling career.
can I add one more thing on that
What's
last
up?
topic? Is again, I'm going to give an open space because I'm not a parent, but I'm going to give open space on how challenging it must be based on the way you were parented, and then when you have your own kids, the way you want to usher in a parenting style. If you were in a space, and I think Alexia alluded to the way she was raised,
Mhm.
and you were feeling whatever you were feeling, you try to almost do the opposite because you know that certain things didn't make you happy or whatever the case. So it is a challenging experience to feel what you feel and get through all of your feelings. That's why everyone should go to therapy and be parented and kind of get through your mess, and
Mhm.
just live your great adult life, because by the time
Yeah.
you have kids, whatever age that is, Alexia of course has grown up kids now, you have
Mhm.
to get that stuff kind of weeded out, because
Yeah.
then you might be giving your son too much of a pass when he needs a little bit more tough love. And then now we're getting to a point where it's too late, and he's like saying, well, screw it, I won't even talk to you. But you're right, we spent enough time on Alexia.
You know what's funny is I want to say one more thing about this whole
It-
situation. If you find yourself in a domestic violence situation, whether it be you being wrongly accused or you actually being a victim of domestic violence, you can now text or chat via SMS text message. Text START to 88788, or you can call 1-800-799-7233. If you find yourself in a domestic violence situation. We do want everyone out there to love themselves and love themselves first. And, we uplift you in your power of taking your stance and loving yourself, which is why also we want to roll over to Julia and her self loving, um, now that she is revamping her modeling career at this age, because the industry is now calling for diversity, inclusion, different shapes, sizes, and colors. And like Julia has stated, she isn't the petite size that she was before, but now she has a woman's body who has had children. Ronnie, what's your take on this?
Julia tends to be someone less interesting on the show for me, unfortunately. I've never really been an Adriana fan, so last season when she was ushered in through Adriana, it was kind of like, eh. although I understand her role, she is the quirky friend. She's a full-time housewife, and she's married to Martina Navratilova, which was season 1, well, season 4, but their season 1 was a lot of fun. I worry that we're going to lose that fun this season because I'm not interested as much in a Julia and Martina not having a bond. Like that was the magic. That was the you watch the series and it's like Martina's of course not a main character, but she like is fun on the show, and you're like, wow, here's this tennis grade, and you get so much personality out of them. I'm not. While it's good to see what they're going through, and I really did feel for like I kind of felt for Martina because while Julia was expressing herself, and everyone should always express yourself, get through your stuff, because if you don't get through your stuff, it's going to come off, to your spouse. Ways. Your spouse is they're going to feel it. However, for Martina, it was leaving, what Julia said was leaving Martina in a place where she couldn't really go anywhere, and she was like, well, what do I do? I mean, imagine, I'm not negating that Julia feels isolated now that the kids are alone. I mean, gone. But what does that say about, like, you're married to Julia, as Martina is, and you're not enough? Luckily, Martina's a badass and is pretty damn confident, but the normal person, or even me, if my spouse was like, oh, our kids are gone, and, I don't like being home alone with you, I'd be like, I mean, I'm confident, but that would really throw me. So
it would throw me as well.
I'm a little less interested in this storyline, but if we see it, I guess it's okay. But I will give a lot of energy to what you said. I am also very much okay with, let's see a person who used to model years ago and now they're of a certain age. I notoriously always talk about almost like age. I like support the concept of, like, we get older, and women have it harder when they get older in terms of acting. When I do radio, I always say, put your age out there. I mean, you don't gotta say it every moment, but I know that, like, I've been around too many people that are my age or older, and they all pretend they're 23. Baby, you're not 23. We could see it, but
yes, we can.
And that's why you hear me so many times saying, I'm out here, I'm in my 40s, I'm fabulous, let's get busy, because you have to put a face so that everyone could continue on. You have a chance to really create something. And Julia's actually correct that it is a little bit more trendy and hot right now to be, aging gracefully. So, I think, God, I didn't even think I was going to spend much time on this. I just think I want to see her win in that arena, because I'm huge into that. That's very important to me. Like, if you being significantly younger than me, and so mature, but if you ever got to a certain age and you started to tell me, just as a friend, like off camera, oh, Ronnie, I'm like, getting a little frustrated, this, and this, I'll say, take your time, take a beat, go step away, do what you got to do. But you don't ever stop if that's what your calling is. I'm very supportive of that. And too many times we feel like by the time we hit 32, if it didn't happen, we got to go. And I'm here to tell you, look at this fine ass Ronnie, randomly Ronnie Jr. You know what I mean?
With the blue eyes and the dimples. Come on now.
I mean, the hazel doesn't stop. But so to that, I would like to see it. So hopefully this storyline comes in a space of a full, like what would it be, a 180 or a 360? A 180, where Julia starts working, she gets the confidence, and sometimes it is that. Sometimes you don't have your own purpose. The kids were her purpose, and it's hard, but now she could have her purpose, and maybe it'll be better for Martina, because Martina's such a pimp. I love Martina. I love me some Martina. A player.
But you know what? It's good, because I hope, I actually hope Rihanna picks her up and brings her into Savage Fenty, because I will say, for the first time, I felt represented in the modeling world, when a lot of people don't know this, but I did lose 2 fingertips, as you all can see, as a 3-year-old. I was just about to be 4, and it was just a freak accident that happened with a bike chain, and again, I lost 2 of my fingers. But Rihanna had amputees and people from the military who've actually lost limbs due to serving our country. And so I think it's a great thing that we're in this time now where you don't have to shy away or be ashamed of who you are. Like, at one point I was looking at prosthetics, like I still might get them, because I don't want to get married and then have have my wedding wing fly off if I'm throwing my hands in the air, because you know that it has a short distance to travel right here. But you know, waving my hands in the air like I just don't care, and it just
Right.
flings off.
Oops.
You know, that's to kind of just give it a little bit of distance so that I can save it from happening. Especially if you're at the club. You know how the club can
Yep.
be and how dirty
We've
them floors can
we
be.
have seen you at the club. We've seen you at the club. Yes, yes,
You know
yes,
what?
yes.
We won't talk about our times in New York
No, no,
because
no, 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 no,
the
no.
world ain't ready for Russ and Ronnie in New York again, but I'm
We'll
sure it's
focus
gonna
on
happen sooner or
Miami.
later.
We'll focus on Miami right now. That's so true. And you know, I think not to cut you off with what you were saying, but it really is a space where like beauty is now defined in so many different ways. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously we joked about it. Was it this episode or last episode where like Dr. Nicole's husband is really good looking and it's like it's his charisma. They're really this day and age, you can like somebody, you know, there's not one way to look beautiful these days. And so showcasing different things, ageism, you know, like you said, an amputee, something of that nature. It's all beautiful, you know.
Speaking of, I do want to highlight an Instagram that my friend Humberto sent me, and us and the world just progressing, which I'm so grateful for, that the world is
Mhm.
progressing in the fact that we love every shape, size, color. If you're not with that, you are of the dying breed, and I appreciate that as well, because things do die hard, and those people who are not with it on accepting everybody for who they are and how they present themselves, or who they are, and the shape, color, and size of them, if you're not with that, I'm okay without you.
Yeah.
But I do want to highlight Instagram 19 Moose 96, um a beautiful couple, a beautiful plus size couple.
Oh, here, let me give you the close up here.
So beautiful plus size couple. Let me tell you, it's highlighting their love, their LGBTQ plus. If you haven't, uh, please go check out their Instagram. They got 23,000 followers. Again, we're focusing on self love right now in this portion of the
Absolutely.
video podcast. But I mean, uh, viewer discretion is advised of this because it is a little bit more of adult content, but it's also a beautiful art photo, and it's very tasteful, which is why I don't mind sharing it. But it's just them expressing their
Oh,
love for each other, holding each other. But as you can see, they're different shape
that's
and
so
size
cute.
than me, but I appreciate their beauty. And actually, I haven't been on Instagram much today,
Hmm.
because he just sent this to me, and it was right before came on. But I mean, just beautiful in every way. So
It is
again,
like, yeah. Oh, go ahead.
that's them. Sorry. Give them a follow, check them out, show your support. You know, they're
Read the
really
handle one more
making
time.
strides. 19 Moose 96. So they're really making strides in what the nuclear couple, or what just an acceptable couple is, as you and I being in LA for such a large portion of our lives. We know the cis gay, masculine, white man and with the perfect abs is really what has been showcased to us. And it's okay to not be that.
1000%.
And so we appreciate Julia. Going back to Julia, we appreciate her accepting her new body postpartum, and having raised her kids, and really just embracing herself and moving forward with that without having to make any changes.
Hmm.
Um, you know, no shade or tea to any doctors that put out plastic surgery or have a little nip tuck, or a little pop of Botox.
That's why I think it's so funny when people shame like you know the season 4, which was the reboot season, and it was like Larsa, she's fake this, fake that. It's like maybe she is, maybe she's happy. I'm gonna tell you, when the money is right, we're gonna get a little chin implant, like, but that does, you know, I got things I'd like to do, but that doesn't mean for 1 second I don't love myself today. And that also
Yeah,
doesn't mean I won't love myself then.
yeah,
And that's like something like where I can be like, hey, I would like to make little adjustments like you would with the car, you know, like you
yeah,
would with your home, you know.
yeah,
So I would like to make adjustments because you know what? My job is, on camera or whatever. So I'd like to feel better about myself, which you could do in the gym as well.
hmm,
I just think we get too excited over the littlest things, like, oh,
hmm,
so and so, well, she's fake, so she must be a bitch, or he's fake, he must be a jerk.
yeah,
No, some of the best looking people are some of the kindest people, but you
hmm.
you sloths. You're not as kind. So on one end, and I know this came in through the vein of us talking about Julia and her returning to modeling at a certain age. I think
Mhm.
on one end where we can say, look at this cast. Yes, this is the hottest cast on like all of Bravo,
Yes.
all of Peacock. While we could say that in one part of our brain, there's another part of our brain that's loves the Instagram that you just talked about.
Mhm.
Like look at these guys. Like again, showing great, amazing full figured queer love. Like that's what's up too. So, I love the way that we profiled that on
Yes,
this
and
episode.
and and it's
Yeah.
very much we've made strides, but there's definitely more strides to be made. But us highlighting this, and especially when we're talking about self love,
Mhm.
is just
That was the through line of these episodes or this
yes,
portion.
yes,
It's funny, Real Housewives of Miami, there's probably like 100 different recaps, and ours is like on some documentary, like like we really
look,
like breaking it down. It's like it's just a show.
we're giving out life lessons, and
Yeah.
we're teaching the world like Oprah Winfrey.
And this is
Um,
only episode 2. Like, what do I always say?
episode
Russell has,
three.
yeah,
Oh,
Russell.
on episode two. Sorry,
Episode
sorry.
2. We just as a note, we covered episode 1 and 2 as our first episode here, and then here is episode 3 and 4. And as a note, Russell has his own career, as we talked about. He of course was on Create the Escape, and of course I've done 100 things as well. He has his own career, I have my own career. We do very well respectively, but like
Yeah.
doing a show together, I always say you need a little R&R. Ronnie and Russell. So
We're
we
unstoppable.
do hope that you have a good time in terms of our perspective. If you do want to show a bit of support, the Instagram handles are available. And if you want to support me in a other way financially, you could hit my patreon.com/randomlyRJ Jr. because make it rain where you need to make it rain, because I am
Yes.
ready for all the loving. So
Yes.
anyways, moving on to the next topic here.
Well, let's actually some of these topics move into the next episode. So we'll go
Okay.
into episode 4, and I want to start with your girl,
Ah,
Larsa's party for
okay.
her dog's one first birthday. Um, what did you think about? We'll just lightly graze over this. I mean, the argument between Larsa and Lisa kind of carried into there, and then there was a bit of a resolution there in a way, and I think the girls are over it and they're tired of it. Um, I mean, I think it was a nice cutesy moment. It allowed Lisa a moment to bring up her dog and the tough decision that her and her husband are gonna have to make, and putting her dog down. My favorite aspect of this scene was when Julia brought her goat, because
Oh.
I just I really have to appreciate Julia for being I really have to appreciate Julia for just being her authentic self. Like, I don't have a dog, but I gotta
Mhm.
go, and I'm gonna bring this goat. And it was pure
Oh,
comedy on television when her goat headbutted one of the dogs. I was like, I'm
and
dead.
the goat was eating the food too. Oh no.
The goat like a little charcuterie.
I was yes. I am not a dog person. Never really grew up with a dog, so to speak. So I'm not like a dog person. There's maybe been one stage in my life that I was like, oh, I would enjoy like a little cutesy pug or something. Because growing up, we actually did have a pug, and my mother had a pug, and
Mhm.
pugs were always like in my orbit. But I'm not really a dog person. I've got bitten by a dog, a
Oh no.
Rottweiler to be specific, on my hand. So I'm not really that loving of man's
Dog.
best friend. No.
Well,
Um,
let's
Go
talk
ahead.
about for a second, going back to the dog party. Let's talk about how the girls brought up uh, Larsa's investment in the collar company, which has almost like a force field type fence, and I
Right.
guess it deters the dogs from running away if you put up the perimeters
Oh,
for
right,
these
right.
fences. But the girls also mentioned that there's always an ulterior motive with her when she throws her parties. There's always a pitch, whether it's her rosé or her jewelry or now the dog collar.
Yeah.
So do you think it's very on brand for housewives to host parties and present their brands? Because we've seen it in the past with Bethany Frankel and Skinny Girl
Mhm.
Cocktails, which was a multi-million-dollar brand. And we've also recently seen it with Kathy Hilton and her tequila, which also
Oof.
causes a lot of drama.
That was
But
boring.
I think if you have a plug and you're on this show's not going to last for a lifetime. Your career might continue, heavy on the might, because you can also fall into this niche category of you're once a housewife, always been a housewife.
Oh,
but I
right.
think it's a smart move for these women, and hopefully in the future we see a non-binary or gay male gay housewife.
Yeah, or lesbian. Yeah. Well,
Because also
Julia.
non-binary can be placed or can represent themselves as she,
Mm-hmm.
they.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't want to leave them out either, because we do appreciate Julia representing the LGBTQIA2 plus community.
Oh, and also the casted on New York is Jetta Lyons. I mean, she had a marriage previously, but she's a lesbian at this stage of her life. So that's Real Housewives of New York that's coming up, the season they're filming. So
and we love to see it because it's showing the times and what we actually are now as a community and how accepting we are, which I really appreciate. But to my point, do you find Larsa, and I know your team Larsa, so I'm going to ask you to try to not be biased on this. Do you find it unacceptable to plug your products on your show? Because it's technically the cast show. So I feel like you should be entitled to bring up your brands. And also, as a side note, Bravo does get a percentage now, NBC Universal, because it is on Peacock. NBC Universal gets a percentage of anything that's pitched because it's free marketing in a way.
Yeah, I don't know that Bethany clause. I don't know how detailed that is or whatnot. If you do feature your item, like does I don't know the details of that, but I've heard that as well.
Yeah.
My thing is, I think it becomes sticky in terms of Larsa doing this because what I think a lot of I'm not saying the other cast has a hater bone in their body, but it creates this space where it's like, why does Larsa get to do this? And then we have our businesses as well. So on one hand, it's like, I'm mad at myself because I wasn't, I won't say not smart enough because they're all smart women, but I wasn't swift enough to like push this right into the storyline, and make a scene.
Yeah.
Actually make a scene. But then on the other hand, I think sometimes the other cast members, they can see the favored housewives. Like obviously Larsa is favored on this show, so they may get mad like, oh gosh, it was season 3 and Larsa wasn't even here, and I tried to have this event covered and production didn't cover it. I tried to have this covered and production didn't cover it. Well, unfortunately for them, and fortunately for Larsa, she's a household name in terms of she's on TMZ every day and she's always being linked with this one and that one. So there's a certain buzz that allows her to kind of have that, and she maneuvers it to her favor. I'm not a dog person whatsoever, but I don't knock the concept. Just as a slight note, because I'm such a dirty birdie. The dog Walker was, even if I didn't say he was fine, he had good teeth. He just real good looking man, so maybe he could walk my dog. You know what I mean?
So. I will appreciate that Gertie, she was highlighted.
Oh,
she
her
was
business?
highlighted. Yes, she was highlighted in Forbes magazine for her business as the top. I don't want to botch this, but
I mean, would it be fair to say like event planner, like that?
Yes,
sort
as
of
the top event planner, and like her business is booming. So I will say, like, I do appreciate that was highlighted, and I would love to see more of her work, and I would love to see her cross over with other housewives on with their cast, not necessarily to be part of their cast, but to be doing their events, because I think that is
yes,
because I think they're all part of one family as the franchise. So why not share the love by allowing a very successful woman who's been featured on Forbes to also hold these events on the other housewives shows, whether it comes to weddings, parties, charity events. I mean, for instance, we have Melissa Gorga, who we both love, who always has her fashion show, the Envy fashion show. So I would love to see Gertie transition over there and plan that whole event to the extravaganza that she brings to the table. So I think that was a great plug on Peacock's part.
I wouldn't be mad at a Gertie 4-episode special or whatever
Mhm.
spin-off special.
Yep.
I wouldn't be mad. They also talked about I can't remember who said this to her, but they're like, "Oh, Larsa in the city," like Larsa dating or whatever in
Oh yeah,
Miami.
yeah,
Like that would be something. Obviously, in the current days, it seems like she's always in the news linked to somebody.
yeah.
And I say that with all the love. But yeah, like this is where we're at with the franchise. I can see who was the person who got mad? Oh, it was Alexia. Alexia was
Mhm.
saying, why do we always have to go to these events? But
Yeah.
at the same time, Alexia, you have the opportunity to do this too. And also at the same time, it's built in now. It would
Yeah.
have seemed a little odd in the earlier days, but now that it's become something that it's almost like you snooze, you lose. I
Mhm.
do kind of not like that to a degree because you don't want to be too much of a commercial.
Mhm.
Like, maybe, you know, like I don't want to see Larsa every episode hawking some goods or whatever,
Yeah.
one of her products, but right now it hasn't been too much for me. But imagine you being the cast member and you're not getting that opportunity. I
The
could see
same.
how Alexia, who is honest, we said that about Alexia, she's
She's
the
honest.
honest one. Even if
Yeah.
she steps in it, she's the most honest. So that comes from a place of like, well, damn, what about my business? So,
Speaking of honesty, let's talk about Adriana wanting a Brazilian butt lift. I have my own reservations about this.
oh,
Larsa
tell me.
also feels a way about it, but I want to hear your perspective first before I put my opinion out there because
Wait, do you want
let's
my
just leave it
opinion?
as
Do you want my opinion on the BBL in general or Adriana having it?
I want your opinion both on BBLs in general and on Adriana getting it after she gave Larsa such a hard time about it.
Okay, I think that Adriana always liked Larsa. Season 1, she only cared as much as she did and talked as much junk about her is because she really wanted to be her friend, and they
Yeah.
weren't that close, so like you turn into an enemy. That's the only reason Adriana ever, in my opinion, treated her that way and said,
Mhm.
"Oh, you want to be a Kardashian and you left the show or you left Miami, you come back, trying to be our friends." I'm like, "Well, first of all, Larsa didn't want to be your friend per
Oop,
se."
oop.
But no, I had no problem with it. And this is a huge, if anyone has ever went to my channel, randomlyRonniejr.com, you know that I'm very uninterested when it comes to Adriana. I think she's making some effort. I think Adriana possibly was doing too much for too many seasons. And
Mhm.
then last season, her being a friend of was a bit of a perspective or an enlightenment where she
Mhm.
said, let me just have fun with it. So she's still awkward. She still feels a little uncomfortable around Larsa because she really prefers to have that friendship. And it's not really there. And that's why she steps in it. But absolutely, I don't use the word hypocritical all the time because these damn housewife shows, everyone says hypocritical for things that don't equate. I'm so
Yeah.
tired of that. That's hypocritical. So and so
Yeah.
said this and so did this. I'm like, you mean two entirely different instances? Can't
Yeah.
call that hypocritical.
Yeah.
But you can call it hypocritical if you say you're fake, you're this, you're plastic, et cetera, et cetera. And then you say, oh, I'm trying to be plastic. And by the way, why don't you come and support me? Like
Yeah.
that is a little off.
Yeah.
Luckily, Larsa is such a shark and she does not give a care and it rolls right off. Because another person would have said, like, screw you. So to your question, what do I feel about it? I feel like that was Adriana showing her ass, literally, once again. And Larsa being like unbothered. And to me, the reason I like her, what does she say? Pitbull Pippen. Uh, it's just another reason that I enjoy, the absolute queen of the franchise.
Look, just in general, I'm gonna get real honest, real quick, real fast, because I don't want to spend too much time on this. And you guys can attack me in the comments. You guys can attack me and accuse me of whatever and whatever after I say this. I don't agree with BBLs. I don't think if you're willing to work for it, or if it has anything to do with I don't think if it has anything to do with like proportioning your body because like you're top heavy or X, Y, or Z. Like some people that are body heavy get implants for that reason so that they can proportion their body out. But again, love yourself who you are. Don't be persuaded by anyone to do anything to your body that you don't want to. I disagree with the BBLs. I've dealt with them on a personal level for people who don't know how to handle themselves and are highly medicated on these drugs afterwards because America is just like pushing them out
Mhm.
unnecessarily. Unlike if you go overseas to some Asian countries, they keep you in a resort style suite for a week to make sure that you heal correctly and efficiently, instead of just sending you home or on a plane with body bag fluid drip catchers.
Mm.
Yeah, I've worked very hard for my booty and I'm very proud of it. And some of that has to do with genetics. But I also didn't always have a booty. I also had to work very hard for it. So I've had people ask me in my area, where I got it done. I always turn to them and I say just like this, Gold's Gym. They're like, oh, it's real. Yeah, it's real. Some of us work very hard for our thick jeans. And so I don't appreciate now that it's very trendy to have a fake butt. Not necessarily what a Brazilian butt lift is, but also Adriana did mention about having some artificial in there. So it's very on brand right now to have a fake ass and for it to be very disproportionate to your legs and thighs. But baby, let me tell you, I've dated men, I've dated women. If the thighs don't match the booty, I don't want nothing to do with it because I already know that something's up and I ain't intrigued by it. It's hard as a rock. Even people with pure muscle booties, it's not hard as a rock. No, I'm not into it. I don't agree with it. Don't get a fake ass because I promise you, you're a Brazilian butt lift or fake ass with terrible thighs that just don't match. You're gonna look like a fool later on in life, and some of these procedures cannot be undone. So please think about that before you have it done, especially if you're going out of the country and you're having things that aren't approved in America, like injections. It's not gonna look good when you get old. You might not like that you have a little sag here and there now, but it's gonna be a lot worse when you're 70 and 80 and you're trying to wipe your booty, or someone in the retirement home is wiping your booty, and it ain't pretty. So don't do it. I have my reservations on that, and also appreciate people who work very, very hard for their booties because I'm one of them.
So are you against plastic surgery in general, or you're just a little more specific on this phase of the BBL and how people are overdoing it?
Yes.
And yes, they made the joke and they showed her thin legs, and it wouldn't look good. It just would not, you know.
Do you want to know what BBL looks like to me when you have skinny legs and when the thighs don't match? It looks like an abundiga on toothpicks. Like a little sample from Sam's Club or Costco. You just get a little meatball on a stick.
It looks like the Grinch too. Yeah, it doesn't look great. So wait, but just to that. So I made the joke. I was like, oh yeah, don't let me get my money right. Chin implant. A little nip tuck here and there. Do you feel that across the board with plastic surgery? Or is it mostly just that particular procedure and its trendiness? And then also, is the real root of like why you don't like it because you're in the gym every morning and you're like busting your butt literally that you're like, why can't everyone else do this? Is that where it comes from a little bit?
A bit of it comes from there, but most of it comes from it being overdone.
Right.
Like
I do wonder why it has to be so. Even Larsa, like, is so big. Like, why does it have to be that big?
I never had an issue with the BBLs before it started blowing up to a disproportionate, almost disfigured shape. Like, you almost have to be disfigured for you to fit in with an ass now. And it's like, it's so disgusting to me. That like you're altering your bodies to this extent. Like it's not like how implants originally came out and it was just a little lift and a little more augmentation so that you can fill out your bra because you had a flat chest. It's going above and beyond to not fit into your jeans and for it to be disproportionate to the rest of your body in such a drastic way that it does not look how you think it looks. And grant you, like, sometimes we go through this body dysmorphia where we think more is more, and really,
I was gonna say that more. I think social media and being on, the camera or like, putting out content does alter people's vision of themselves. It's like even when working in the world of radio, it was like you heard your voice for the first time. You're like, is that me? Well, for the most part, you don't change your voice, but for some reason, everyone like like again, I'm in the position where I'm like, I would get some stuff done, some.
Mhm.
But at the same time, I'm also in the position where I'm like, I'm a baddie today. like I love myself today. Granted, in terms of your health and whatever, I would love to be back to the size I was when I was 32 years old, 31 years old, 29 years old.
Mhm.
Like so like it's a little that's why it's that whole Lizzo. Now I'm going to like more of an overweight commentary, but that whole like loving your body Lizzo thing is so complicated for everybody because it's not saying Lizzo is content and doesn't want to work on herself. It's
Mhm.
saying you can't tell me I can't love myself today. But
Yeah.
we don't give a lot of room for growth. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, we almost like want to keep you there. We need you to either be wounded and like we I don't know. There's just so much to this topic. Maybe I should just shut up
We could
because
put a
it's
pin in
it's
this one for
it's
now because
complicated.
I think bringing up wounded is a good transition to head over to Lisa's relationship. And this is very complicated because at the end of episode 4, we find Lenny confessing that he is actually seeing somebody else. Now, I have a hard time unpacking this a little bit because in a sense, I can relate to Lenny as in getting out of a relationship that you're really not into. And I don't 100% fault him for seeking out another relationship because, grant you, he's in a rough situation. A lot of his money is tied up in this relationship. There might not be a prenuptial agreement because they've been together for such a prolonged period of time. Lisa's going to be entitled to a significant amount of money and alimony support because they've been married for such a long time. They're already on 10 plus years. They have kids together, which are also going to come into the mix. So it's finding that fine line of when's the right time to leave. But I do understand where he's coming from when it comes to uh because they're Lisa and Lenny are having different experiences, right? Lisa's having a great experience. She said, as we quote on these past 4 episodes, they're on an up right now. Um, but Lisa also is in a way kind of self-centered. And then she has these one-off moments with Lenny where it's like, I'm giving you my attention. And Lenny I feel craves he wants more intimacy and more time together and less of like the spotlight of it's all about me. Um, so I don't necessarily 100% blame him for seeking out love somewhere else, especially because he is not being intimate with Lisa. It would be different, in my opinion, and I would feel a different type of way if he was sleeping with Lisa and also sleeping with this other girl, which which they'll reveal in, I'm sure, the next few episodes. But he's in a rough spot in a sense of it's hard to break off a relationship, number one. Number two, it's hard to break off a relationship when you have kids. And number three, it's hard to break off a relationship when you're going to take a financial hit, which is where I think this line of credit that Larsa brought up on the on
Season
Lisa's
episode
property.
1. Yeah.
Yes. And why it's continued to spiral into this last episode. I think it's serving as a vital source for Lenny as he begins this transition out of the relationship.
Mhm.
And I know it's going to catch Lisa off guard, but I will say, to a sense of sometimes as individuals in today's time, we're almost so self-centered that we don't read the signs or realize that we're dismissing and not giving our spouse our time and energy.
Mhm.
It, because the show is one thing. They could very much be having these moments that we're not seeing, but as we're seeing on the show, or what I'm seeing on the show, is that there's really no intimate time or moments with them as a couple that are really engaging towards each other. And as we've seen, he's been on his phone when they're having their moments. We saw the same thing happen with Judice with the Real Housewives of New Jersey.
Mhm.
Um, it's I can't 100% fault him and I can't 100% hate him because I don't blame him for wanting love in a sense that he feel is fitting for him, um, given he has so much tied up in his current relationship with Lisa. Um, because divorce, breakups, pulling off engagements or calling off engagements, they're all very tricky situations and every scenario is different. Um, so, the fans might hate me for this, or, Lisa might come for me in my DMs or on my, or come in the comments and might say, different opinions towards me. Um, but I can't, like I said, I can't hate him because he had enough respect for Lisa, and this is what I was trying to get to. He had enough respect for Lisa to not sleep with her while he was already with another woman. What are your thoughts? Because I feel like I'm a little bit all over the place, but I also
No.
feel like I gradually got to my point, and like I said, at least he made a conscious decision to not sleep with his wife, although he doesn't want to be with her before he progressed into this other relationship. So I will say it is respectable for the fact that he was able to, sustain to refrain, that he was able to refrain from having intimate moments in the bedroom with Lisa while he was already sleeping with somebody else.
Like he doesn't want to cheat on the new girl with
But
his
it
wife to a
also,
degree, which is so complicated. Yeah.
and it speaks volumes because that's almost a mature aspect, even though he's moved on and is cheating and he is cheating, but he's moved on and he's being unfaithful to his matrimony at home. But
Mhm.
at the same time, he's also being responsible, being a doctor, and not potentially crossing STDs. Not saying that anybody has an STD, but you
Mm.
just never know what's out there. And sometimes bodies can react to other people's bodies. So she's safe in the regard of there's not going to be an STD that's given to her if this other person is not living the life that Lenny is living and isn't respecting that relationship. But I will
Mm.
say I have to respect the fact that he had enough respect for Lisa to not be
Right.
sleeping with her while he's been with another woman.
No, that's definitely an interesting take, and I think a lot of people will be a bit surprised by it. But you did explain it really well and well articulated, so it does make sense,
Yeah.
And it is a challenging experience to cut that relationship and all that comes with it. I think for her, there's still such an availability to feel sad for her because it does still feel like the rug is pulled from under her, and
Yeah.
then where does she go navigationally
Mhm.
in that? And then of course the show, they gosh, the cinematic like way that they showed how happy she was and the words that Julia was talking about in terms of love and
Mhm.
she was talking about in terms of love and how it's ups and downs and he's kind of saying a different tone. I mean, it was
Mhm.
just a dramatic way. Television wise, it was very chilling, I will say.
Mhm.
For her, I think maybe, and I mean, I guess the question would be like, when somebody falls out of love with you, don't you always kind of know to some degree? So
Yes.
maybe this is, I know it was like Gertie had made a little comment like, oh, I wonder what's really going on that's
Mhm.
getting her so aggravated. You put displaced energy elsewhere.
Mhm.
So she's, trying and trying and trying and trying, and maybe even in denial. But you do kind of know I always quote the Bonnie Raitt song, you can't make me love you if you don't, or something like that. It's like at the end of the day, and Larsa actually, sorry, I always bring Larsa into it. One time I heard an interview with Larsa, and it was in the vein of, I think it was because she met Tristan Thompson or whatever his name is first, and then Chloe,
Ooh.
et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Going into uncharted Ronnie, uncharted territory there,
Listen,
Ronnie.
because I like my Larsa, I always watch, I watch her interviews. And one time, one of the interviewers was kind of like talking about that and sort of trying to frame it as a like, oh, are you kind of upset that Chloe, whatever? And she didn't really feel like getting into it, but she did say this, which I like. She goes, I'm in the position that if somebody's not feeling me, I mean, I don't know how she said it.
Mhm.
I want nothing to do with it anymore. Will it hurt a little bit? Will
Mhm.
it sting? Yes, because you don't just fall out of love. And again, this is my how I reacted to it. It's maybe this is not word for word,
Mhm.
but I remember being very inspired by that. I'm like, yeah, that's how we have to be. We have to like hold our heads up and say,
Yeah.
if they are like, I can't, again, Bonnie Raitt, I can't make you love me if it's not really going. If you have already moved on, what can I do?
Yeah.
I need to get back on my feet and I need to find somebody who will, because you hold in value in self,
Yeah.
even though it's challenging. But in terms of Lisa and Lenny, I totally understand what you're saying, and you made such great points. And I can also equally feel very sad for her.
Mhm.
But to say that she didn't know it was maybe coming is it could feel like the wool got pulled from under her, the rug got pulled from under her, but it also
Mhm.
was like they did have a separation or whatever they dictated last season. It was a separation, but not a separation.
And
you know,
again, that can open the door to many other things that can linger. So you
mm,
gotta we like everyone has the right to navigate their own relationships the way that they feel. But
mhm,
again, you have to know what comes with that uncharted territory that you're about to enter, because if you go on a break, are we going to accept the fact that we could potentially be sleeping with other
right.
people and have slept with other people? And what if
Mhm.
there was a stronger connection than we realized there, but we decide we're going to work it out, and that's lingering? So that's
And
very dangerous.
okay, and then you think what's harder about this whole situation, you do this show makes you overcompensate so much of
Yes.
the reality
Yes.
because they'll be in an argument and the producer will be feeding these things like, "Oh, so do you have a problem with such and such?" And then like I think it was last season Lisa was kind of saying, "Well, this and this, but my life's perfect." She might have even said it this season.
Hmm.
Meaning like I have my kids, I've got my husband, et cetera, et cetera. So you're doubling down where in real life when you go to bed at night you're like, God, this is not really gelling like it used to, but
Hmm.
you gotta showcase that. So when this other person in your cast has an issue with you, you're like, well, of course you're saying that because because you're single, or of course you're saying that because you're unhappy in your marriage. Well,
Yeah.
I'm happy over here. I think she's forced, almost, Lisa, as much as I love her, she's almost forced to continue to say how great this thing is.
Hmm.
That's not great. But I got to tell you, let me live in that house. And I've only went outside once in 6 years or whatever the
Look.
case. Like that should tell you all you need to know about love
Yes. Yes.
because
Yes.
that view is gorgeous. And if you can't appreciate that,
Hmm.
I mean, we've got something
Deeper.
really, really, really to worry about. So yeah, I'm not negating what you said. Um, I didn't expect like such a Lenny, support or whatever the case, but it just was a chilling scene. It was a
It
chilling
is.
end of a four episode premiere. And I thought I was watching a scripted series for a moment. It was done that well at the end,
Yes. And it's
cinematically and
Oh, it's
everything.
so wild. And my heart does go out for her because she still has to do these confessionals, and I don't know, because I'm not part of the production, the Bravo or Peacock production team. And that's for this series, of course, I have my own. Um, but I just, if she had to do this confessional after this has already been spliced together, she's already went through it, or if they just did it before she really found out and did a confessional like boom next day after that, after those scenes were shot, then I can understand that they're going to be more realistic when it comes to um response. But to have to show face, if these confessionals are done after the fact and have to pretend like you didn't know and that you're that's got to be rough. I would
Right.
hate for my relationship to be on display like this, but I guess we're going to see how this unveils itself as we progress. If Lenny is leaving for love, that's one thing, but I really hope it's something in the vicinity of his age or like
What do you
close
mean?
to it.
What do you mean his age?
More like, we tend to see like men leave women for the young hot version of what they already had.
Oh, wow,
Um,
younger than her. Okay, so wow, that would be crazy.
but I mean, again, love is love. I've dated older than me. I've dated a couple of years younger than me, but I
Mm,
I do try to stay like within my age range. There was that one off that was not like I didn't date. I didn't date like 20 years my
mhm,
senior, but I dated a little bit outside of the range, like 10 years. And I mean, again, we'll see how how it unveils itself. But like I said, I can't dislike him or place loathing Larry, because I'm trying to have a level-headed perspective on this and understand all the different pieces that are in play when it comes to breaking off a relationship and really dividing assets, children, being in the midst of shooting a television show. Like that is all very messy. So it's almost like, do you withhold from progressing the way you want to progress life? And we always talk about living your best life. Do you withhold from progressing your best life to finish out the show and then do this off camera? Or do you pull the plug on it and be like, well, this is how the cards are unfolding, and I'm not gonna hold out until until everything is pretty and roses for people that, you know, Lenny might not care about. He might not care about the viewers. He might not care about the fans. So to
Yeah,
him, it's like,
but he has to have cared about her. So I do
for
kind of feel
sure.
like his intent was to hold out, you know, and just
Yeah.
save face. Now, my question is, does he get pissed when this is the way the season rolls out? You
The
know,
hot
this
mic.
this hot mic moment.
Yeah.
How do you think the real Lenny, like reacted to that being the way the season was going to go?
We saw a little bit of his aggression when it came to Lisa calling 911 when the nanny fell, or wanting to
Mm.
call 911 when the nanny fell. So I'm sure he was livid and he got on the phone with the producers and he probably went off. Or
But
again,
he
I'm
has
not
no
in the editing room. I'm not the producer of the show. Maybe the producers reached out to him and be like, this is how it's going to get. We're about to cut this and release this. So, or, you know,
buckle up.
you were on a hot mic and we heard it. So
Yeah.
just be weary that this will come out sooner than later. So address this however you're going to address it. Maybe it helped him in a way because maybe it pushed along the prolonging process of calling this quits. But I
Yeah,
mean,
but
we'll only know.
we both think that he absolutely wasn't gonna do this season, right? We think he
I
was
don't
gonna
think he
keep
was
it
going
in.
to do this season,
He
which
was
is why
gonna,
he was whispering.
because even if you have your issues and you are trying to, like you say, uh, plan your escape
Plan
route,
your exit, yeah.
you're you know, you still care about the mother of your children, and he
Mhm.
probably was like, I want to give her this show came back into our lives. This is good for her. Like I still care about her in that regard. I'm not in
Yeah.
love with her anymore. So I think he must have been like who would have thought, like now they're the center of the entire season, you know.
And
So he
again, sorry, go ahead.
no, I just think he must have been pissed, you know. So
Yeah.
I'm interested to know, because much like we said with Peter and Alexia, you know, Peter being the son of Alexia, these aren't the cast members. You're only in it because of, you know, because of your spouse, which is something
Yeah.
to think about when you're going into a show. Like, you know, who am I bringing into the show with me? You know, I
Yes.
could go into the show all day.
Yes.
Russell, you could into the show all day, but who do we bring into the show with us?
Yes.
And what bits of liability do they have, or what do they even know how to maneuver in the space? You know, it really, like I said, heartbreaking. It's just
It
tough to
is.
watch. I hate that this is considered amazing TV.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know what?
but
I really do
whatever.
hope that aside from Lisa's feelings and being hurt and this coming as a sudden announcement or a sudden event, I hope that she does see that it does say a lot about Lenny and the respect that he holds for her to
Mhm.
abstain from having sex with her while he was already sleeping with somebody else. Because I think you have to call what's fair fair. And I think it's very fair at the fact that he had enough respect for her to not do that. Again, and I
If
want to emphasize that point. Like, I don't think it's okay to cheat, but I understand the complexity of this situation for the fact that he was willing to not do something just to play the role, speaks volumes about how he is as a person and the fact, or even how much he felt about her, because if he didn't care about her he would just be getting it in everywhere he could get it in. But again, we'll see how it unfolds in episode 5 and if it's actually released.
yeah,
um but those are my final thoughts on this season. But I mean, it's explosive. I hope that I hope we have more fun than what's been presented in these past few episodes, because the drama is great, but I
mm,
want to see these women having fun. I want to see the coquito come out for the holidays, and I want to see
mhm.
the cumbias and the salsas come out, and I want to
Yeah.
see them embracing each other, and I want to see the strong love that I know the Latin community has.
I've always said that the show, like they end up kind of doing it to themselves. The Real Housewives franchise, they rest on the laurels of like these big explosions, but then where do you go from there? You just got to keep going up and up and up, and you're really
Yeah.
ruining people's lives, even though they signed up for it. Yes. And so to me, Miami was different in terms of season 4 and even 1, 2, 3, because there was a lot of fun. So you need the Marisol to be humorous. You need a lot of the good energy. I mean, I made the mention exactly to what you're saying, how
Yeah.
I don't want to see me personally, I don't necessarily want to see Julia and Martina struggle. Like this is they should be fun. You know,
Yeah.
Julia is quirky, and so, you know, it's not like she's not allowed to have all of her emotions, but Martina was a bit of a breakout star last season 4.
Yeah.
People really fell in love with Martina just for being who she was. You know, she wasn't a character, she wasn't trying to be good for TV, she just instinctually was interesting. And I 100% agree with what you're saying. Give us more Miami, which we're getting a lot. Give us more these wonderful Latino women and the people that they hang out with.
Mhm.
Absolutely, I do agree with that. While the drama is great, what kind of society are we that we just get so excited over a marriage right before our eyes, failing? So, that was both episodes in season 5, episode 3 and 4. This was our second episode, and we'll be back week by week to do a breakdown. I hope we're doing a good job.
I hope so too. Let us know, and let us know what you want to see in the comments, because you know what, nothing is better than catering to your audience, and so we want to know what you want to hear. So if you want to hear
Oh,
more of our in-depth analysis, or you want to hear more of us talking actually more outside about community and supporting, people due to the situations that happen on the show, let us know that too, because you're the fans and we want to give you what you want.
you're a little nicer. Maybe that's why he was on television or on Peacock streaming. If you want to support Russell, it's Create the Escape is on the Peacock streaming platform. So definitely check that out. I'm a little less kind, and I'm like, I don't give a what you think, but I'm still a great dude, I think. And if you want to support, make sure you go to our sites. It's russellraysilva.com, randomlyrjr.com, and if you want to make it rain,
Make it
Larsa, make
rain.
it rain, Larsa. I see you seeing me see you. Patreon.com/randomlyRJ. Toughest question for you. If somebody were to hear your comments about Lenny and you sort of saying he's doing it in a kind way with a bad situation, and
Uh-huh.
they're such a Lisa fan, and they're saying, Russell, you're missing the boat. You're not being compassionate of what she's going through. How do you answer that?
I call bullshit.
Wait.
Straight up. And I don't mean to curse, but I think I am being I think I'm considering the situation as a whole. And that's what's wrong with our society today, is we're not considering the situations as a whole, and we're not having nuanced conversations. So if I don't 100% agree with you, I'm in the wrong. But there are points that I disagree with Lenny and how he lives his lifestyle and how he's going about this, but there's also points where I do agree with him on having enough respect for his future ex spouse to not to care about her health and to not get her sick, because as you and I know, being part of the gay community, it's very important that we take care of each other's health, as well as I encourage everybody else to. But if someone's going to come up to me and tell me that my opinion is wrong, I respect your opinion. However, I respectfully disagree with it, because I think I've been fair on both sides of the fence here. But it's just unpopular to highlight someone who is calling off a relationship. But I also don't think that it's wrong to give them respect where respect is due.
Well, let me tell you, this is my brother from another mother, because I had done an episode once and was very Melissa Gorga, support of her, and I was kind of not enjoying some of the actions of that Jen on Real Housewives of New
Mhm.
Jersey, and the comments had said some stuff. And again, I don't care about the comments as much, but I remember being like, at first, you naturally get you get excited, but you're right, no nuance. So I was like, actually, I could not believe it. I said it's on one of my episodes here on randomlyrjr.com. I said, "Oh, okay," because I was calm.
Mhm.
Um, and not at first, because you're right. We get trained to be like combative. I was
Mhm.
like, you know what? Like, I see your opinion. I can see how you like her. Here's the way I kind of see it.
Yeah.
Like, Jen just kept on and kept on and kept on. And even if Melissa and Joe's actions were crazy, like
Mhm.
they're just trying to be like, can you stop it, Jen? Can you please stop? And then everything will be fine. And I remember thinking like, oh, how are the commenters? Because there was a couple of Jen lovers, for Jen from New Jersey.
Mhm.
I thought they were going to be like so upset by my commentary, and they really weren't. In fact, I think I made them a fan
Mhm.
of the work that I do, because I wasn't really trying to neglect nuance, like what you're saying. Like,
Yeah.
give a little nuance. I just wanted to put the question to you, that way it was at least said, and we did our job. As a big shout out once again, an Instagram handle that gives you all things New Jersey. I'm sorry, run it back. Showing love once again to RHOM.peacock, which is an Instagram account. It's a fan site, and they are all things Miami, all the cast, the new cast, the season 1 through 3 as well, and they're always up to date with all kinds of really good stuff. I'm always finding myself on that Instagram account and saying, Team Larsa, Team Lisa, Team Kiki finally has a confessional. Oh, that was exciting. Kiki has a confessional this season, so I'm
Yes.
excited about that too. We want to learn more about these ladies. Last words for you.
Um, I just can't wait to see how the rest of the season unfolds. I'm very excited, and as you all can tell, I'm very opinionated on the way that I feel and on my stance. But I'm also open to navigating my thoughts with you
Hmm.
because you bring up valid points, and maybe those aren't things that I have thought about. But I'm excited. I'm excited, and I'm proud for our community to have such a staple show with a staple franchise
Yeah.
that is continuing after having a hiatus.
Thank you for checking it out and loving this franchise that we love so much on the Peacock streaming platform that again does air on Bravo after. But damn it, we're here to recap it, and we do realize there's 100 different people that are out there doing it. We hope that you can support kind of the way that we do it. We think we're fair. We broadcast together for quite a bit, and of course have our own careers that are both doing very well. So we just try to have a decent time, and we hope that you had that good time with us too. Okay, now the show is over. Russell, we'll see you next time. Okay.
All right, y'all.